D&D Players, what is your all-time favorite big bad evil guy? I once ran a horror D&D 4-shot where the players went to a crooked town to rid it of cultists who were about to unleash the abyss. When they arrived, all kinds of creepy things were happening. Heretics were being burned on pillars, demons were sickening the weak, and general chaos. The townsfolk disliked the party because they were wealthy investigators seen as outsiders who couldn't handle the job. Whenever the town got rowdy, a detective NPC would vouch for the party or prove their worth to the people. The group started to really like this NPC and almost made him part of their party. At the end of the session, I revealed that the NPC had orchestrated everything, forcing the party to fight him alongside an eldritch monster. I revealed this villain a year ago, but I can still remember how thrilled I was when the whole table gasped in shock at his true identity. Vecna. I've fought a lot of interesting villains and monsters, both homebrew and official, but I'll never forget the big bad evil guy of the first campaign I ever played. That fight lasted for hours, but it was so much fun. As a DM, I've had a lot of fun running a very charming necromancer as a reoccurring villain. He's affably evil, so parties tend to really like his personality, until the nickel drops, and they find themselves fighting a high-level necromancer, their own fallen party members, demons, devils, and once a mind-controlled cavalier in black armor with mad horseback skills. All he wants is to live a quiet life at home with his beloved partner, make both of them functionally immortal because a love like theirs should never be cut short, and master true second life to help people with incurable diseases or poor quality of life find happiness too. If he has to commit a few dozen murders along the way, and sometimes works with adventuring parties to further his goals, then so be it. For a one-shot though, Krampus, Lord Soth, and his 13 skeletal riders on a bridge in the North Pole. That one was a blast. As a DM, no big bad evil guy will ever compare to the Sing Umbero Ulvano from the Sixfold Trial of the Council of Thieves adventure path. He's not even a combat encounter, he's just an actor. But he's chaotic evil, simply because he's a dick. He gives backhanded compliments, insults the players, and I leaned into the mean girl style of petty bullying. The players absolutely hated him, because what could they do, beat him up? That would just be assault. The adventure has the party acting in a play where all the hazards are real, just to get an invite to the mayor's mansion. The Sing plays the villain, so the party has to put up with all his crap all through rehearsals and the final show. It's great. I've never seen PCs hate an NPC more than the Sing. They got just as petty right back at him. 10 out of 10. Would recommend having an NPC be a jerk to the party just for the fun of it. Spoilers for Tomb of Annihilation. Spoiler alert, you're all gonna die. When I ran the Tomb of Annihilation module, I changed up Withers' personality. Instead of a cold, cynical scientist, I made him sort of a Saw meets Willy Wonka character, endlessly cheerful and upbeat about the tomb. My favorite line was, "I'm here to give you the full tomb experience, and that includes sleep deprivation." When the party met him in his office, Withers was so confident that they thought he was a lich. They ended up cutting a deal. If they stayed out of the admin section of the tomb, he'd stay hands-off and even give them another party member. It was a fun way to introduce a new character after the last one died. Myself. In my first ever D&D campaign, my DM was hinting at something with my second character as my first one died. My new character was a warlock, but strange things kept happening to him. Visions, surges of power, and a strange black mark slowly spreading up his arms. In the end, he transformed into a demonic entity, essentially becoming a vessel for the big bad evil guy. I got to fight my whole party. They explained it to me beforehand and I agreed to it, no worries. It ended up being super fun and a really challenging fight. I absolutely tried my best to kill my party. with no luck. Well, Viewmaster Toad was always fun. My friend homebrewed a Final Fantasy RPG and gave us some very entertaining reoccurring encounters with Biggs and Wedge. Our high-level party once fought a bard who was basically a crime boss, and our DM tricked him out with insanely powerful magic items. It honestly felt like the Justice League fighting Batman. He had a counter for every single one of us. My DM ran an eldritch horror campaign with a tentacled Cthulhu-style boss. My character was an extremely perverted female rogue. Over the adventure, she went from being disgusted by the horror to curious, and eventually interested. During the final fight, the boss was mind-controlling one of our fighters. When I hit the boss, he lost control and had to use a legendary action to keep it. I asked, "So, if he's distracted, he loses control?" The DM said yes. So I had my rogue flash him. Everyone at the table started cracking up. Depends on whether you count homebrew monsters or not. Of course we do. If you do, then my group fought a collection of shadow elementals, basically ghosts with a hint of necromancy, that formed a collective creature. Whenever that main creature hit 0 hit points or was hit by force damage, it would fully separate for 1d2+1 turns into its component shadow elementals. There were 15, each with a fraction of the total HP. Afterward, they would reform with any damage done to the elementals healing, but any elementals destroyed permanently reducing the creature's HP. The creature could also choose to separate or release a handful of elementals as an action, not just as a reaction to the party. It was really fun to see how the group dealt with that. If we're just talking official monsters, my favorite was the Elder Tempest I ran using my custom Master of Wind sheet. That was a wild one. I overthrew the ruler of the skies. In middle school, I played in a campaign with a couple of classmates. The big bad was the orc leader of a recently uprising orc population. Our paladin was his son and needed to kill him to inherit command over the army. I was a human artificer, completely unrelated to that whole family drama. It's my favorite big bad evil guy, simply because of the non-stop father-son death threats the villain and our paladin were yelling at each other during the fight. It felt like a real family conflict for the throne. In the final moment at the army's camp, they were about to have one last battle. Through my character's complete misunderstanding of their warrior culture, I kind of shot the big bad evil guy in the knee, right as he was about to dodge our paladin's 3rd level smite. Let's just say my character apologized to our paladin really quickly. In one of the campaigns I used to DM, I homebrewed a ghost spirit knight to give my players a harder time whenever they fought undead. I made up the lore on the fly. Some magical force kept summoning it, so it appeared pretty often. This CR 810 spirit ended up being more of a threat to my party, 6 to 10 players, than the actual big bad half the time. The group started thinking the Spirit Knight was the worst enemy they'd ever faced. I had planned to create a storyline about the knight, letting the party solve its mystery so it wouldn't be summoned anymore. Unfortunately, the campaign ended because, well, one of the players got too busy. I used to have so many dragons. The party would usually encounter them disguised as frail humans, always offering some enticing knowledge. When a fight broke out, I'd usually pull the dragon back before things got too intense. But by the end, someone was definitely going to die. Quinn Aura from the Fool's Gold module, based on the campaign retelling by Dingo Doodles on YouTube. She's a witch warlock with a thing for hands, ruling a town of beast folk she created by kidnapping people, chopping off their hands, and replacing them with animal limbs. The transformed people became beast folk under her control and lose all memory of who they once were. She's obsessed with perfection. In our campaign, our version of Quinn Aura also happens to be love-struck with my wizard. Don't ask, it was a complete accident. She coerced him into an engagement by holding his best friend hostage, and we know his freedom is gone as soon as the marriage happens. So now we're adventuring on borrowed time, desperately trying to figure out how to rescue his friend and pull off the most spectacular divorce in the history of the Bellowing Wilds. In my first campaign, there was a joke villain who showed up a few times, a goblin wizard. He always brought a bunch of friends to fight on his behalf, casting a spell or two before fleeing the moment things started to go badly. We only ever had to fight half a battle when he appeared. His second appearance happened during an encounter with a serious threat. I managed to dispatch him by firing an arrow blindly through magical darkness, right as he loudly announced his entrance. All we heard was an "Ow!" and the sounds of him shuffling away. Every time our DM put on that screechy little goblin voice, the whole table got excited. Faceless, an immortal doppelganger who doesn't age, but can die. He's been following a party member their entire life, sometimes as a stranger, friend, or rival, constantly taking new forms. He's obsessed with method acting, magic items, and uncovering knowledge. Faceless believes that if he can completely study someone and learn their deepest, darkest secrets, then by killing and becoming them, he alone holds knowledge no one else can possess. Once he killed a powerful sage by pretending to be his understudy. One secret he learned was a prophecy. The party member he's been following, who had just been born at the time, would one day do something incredible, discovering a great lost wonder of the world in a time of need, or whatever the main plot demands. In combat, Faceless shifts forms and completely changes his skill set, depending on whom he's impersonating. He has dedicated literal ages to mastering every art of combat. I had a surly dwarf who was the right-hand man for the big bad evil guy. His job was to oversee all the little villainous groups sent out to cause trouble. Every time the PCs stopped bandits, cultists, or a corrupt king, this dwarf would be lurking nearby. When fights broke out, the dwarf would pull out single-use magic items, crafted by the big bad evil guy, and mess with the players before just teleporting away. The trick was that he'd often drop a magic item on his way out, pretending to be clumsy. The effects of these items always turned out to be extremely helpful for infiltrating the final dungeon. Only in the finale did the players finally realize he'd been a traitor to his evil master all along, and had been helping them under their noses. After their victory, the dwarf joined the celebration and poisoned the wine. Only the barbarian remained standing to fight him off, and though he was losing, he put up a good show. The dwarf escaped again, disappointed he couldn't loot all the party's fancy gear. I had a campaign, and I'm currently running it again with a new group where, through various levels of fuck-uppery, the party unleashes the princes of hell upon the world. Yeah, I like Oblivion, fight me. They were pretty standard. War, pestilence, famine, madness, and so on. War was the simplest, as he was the embodiment of a perfect combatant, with 20 levels in fighter, barbarian, paladin, ranger, and war cleric. He wasn't particularly smart, he just lived to fight. Pestilence went around spreading diseases like the big AIDS monster he was. They never actually defeated him, they just managed to quarantine him inside a volcano. One by one, the party systematically hunted down and killed the physical manifestations of these evils. They got right to the end of the last arc before someone finally noticed there had been no mention of the Prince of Deception. That's when the archangel they'd been helping to kill all these demigods stabbed them in the back and took his throne. As prideful as he is intelligent and wise, Drafon has taken many tips from the evil overlord list. He's no nonsense and never hesitates if a foe stands in his way. The undead are merely tools to be used and abused whenever possible. If they can't solve a problem, he simply sends in more qualified individuals. Though it pains him to admit, Drafon knows he is not invincible and often persuades others to assist in furthering his cause. Incredibly devoted to Mirkrol, his one overarching goal is to increase his god's domain to the point where Mirkrol can challenge Kelimivor for the title of Ruler of the Dead. I once ran a gargoyle fighter focused on archery. He'd swoop in, loose a few arrows, and rely on his damage reduction and flight to avoid getting killed or cornered. He was also batshit crazy. The look on my players' faces when they realized they were being picked off by a lunatic flying statue was priceless. It was deeply satisfying as a DM. Hey everyone, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know in the comments below. What's your favorite villain that you've ever faced? And of course, if you want to support the channel, join our membership program. It keeps the lights running and you get early access to videos. We love you all. See you next time. Toodaloo.